Sorry, this is Stacey's call, so it's off to you.
Okay. Hi everybody, and thank you for coming here. Um, this call started off because, well, I think that on the last OGM call, we touched on the idea that conflicting and competing stories share the same narrative structure. And at the time that I put out for the call, what I wanted to do is have the opportunity to continue to build off of OGM calls, because a lot of times we'd have this really rich call, but there'd be one particular direction that I wanted to like pull out even more. In the case of the last call, I really wanted to. So let me ask you a question. This is a perfect group. Raise your hand if you think that you can think that you're good at thinking like a con man. See, that's the problem.
I
And
would have found
it's
a
a
different
one.
line of work if the answer were yes, I'd be doing something different.
So here's the thing. It's wonderful because you're a wonderful group of people. And so you're not people that are looking to manipulate. But the thing is that on the other side, there are people that are really good at being con men. In fact, when you go to business school, you learn how to listen for people's weaknesses so that you can manipulate them into buying things. You learn how to do those things. I happen to think I could probably be a very good con woman. However, I've worked really, really hard on the ethical moral scale. So I go out of my way to not manipulate people, sometimes to my own detriment. That being said, the initial thing when I wanted to have the call is, I had seen, it was very clear to me that there were at least three narratives that I could see clearly that were intersecting. And I mentioned that on the email. It was like, when they say there's all these murderers, rapists, and drug dealers. Well, that's, people can agree on that. They might not agree on who's doing the murdering and the raping. If you're on the left, the people doing the raping are the people in Congress, as opposed to the immigrants. But it's those same stories. The fact that we're being poisoned. Some people would agree we're being poisoned by the people making COVID vaccines. Other people were being poisoned by foods. In this case, and this is relevant to Klaus's work, we can use that because both groups, at least they agree that we're being poisoned. They just target one company or the other company without realizing that like they're both benefiting because they're just pointing their fingers that way. So that was the initial reason for my call. Let me fast forward a little bit because on another call that we are dealing more with like emotions and things like that, it finally became clear to me that this same idea of the same narrative structure also has to do with stories. So so I was listening to somebody talk about a cultural story, and it was a story about feeling isolated or whatever, and it had to do with their culture. And I realized that that's the same whether it's a tech culture or a male culture or an Asian culture, like whatever it is. And so it made me think that rather than try to have a call where I teach you to think like criminals so we can outsmart the bad guys on social media, which is one possibility, maybe more importantly, a separate section of calls where we go back to the roots and the real beginning of where this where these stories overlap, but where we're not making men and women enemies of each other. Because the truth is, whether you grew up male or female, you've still had the experience, at least if you're in the group that's not good at being con men, if you're like our people, you've still had the experience of, let's say, feeling powerless. And maybe one day you had a story and something happened, and that was your empowerment story. I might be rambling a little because a lot of things are intersecting. Let me go to the OGME part since I have Jerry and Eric here, because this relates to you guys. Jerry, you said on a call that you were kind of disappointed that people weren't recognizing that Google Notebooks could do more than just do podcasts. So I'd like to share this story because it is an evolution of where I am in this moment. I had been on a call. It was Jose's call, but Jose wasn't there. And so we had no way to turn on his recording device. And Remzi and somebody else that's not part of our community was there. And I said, can I run through this idea I have? Because I finally have it like modified to a point that's explainable. And Jerry, if you remember years ago when you worked so hard to help me draw out my ideas and I couldn't do it, well, now they're pretty well synthesized. So this is what happened. Remzi recorded the call using Fathom. I think it was Fathom. And then at the end, he sent it to me. So I wanted to take that recording and put it in notebooks to make a podcast out of it so I could hear what a pitch would sound like. And the first stumbling block I had is that they can't communicate with each other. You can't take a file from there and put it into Google Notebooks. So I had to come up with.
It depends on what Fathom creates. You should be able, I don't know if Fathom records the audio or video or just takes notes. If it's a notes file, it should just be text, and you should be able to export that from Fathom and then suck that into notebooks.
Well, your average person, and that's who I'm here to represent, your average non-techie person couldn't do that. So what she did instead, because she knows there's a way to figure these things out, might not be the traditional way, I used my phone to play the recording. I went onto my free Zoom account and I recorded it as if the recording were speaking, and then I used that file.
Cool.
Okay, so now I go to Google and to Notebooks, and I'm putting in notes, and I put in some of my documents that I had created before. Because now I have like two main things. One was Game B, making of the game, which gamifies something, but the other is something that I'm calling Skin, which is, anyway, I'll get to that in a minute. So I put in the notes and everything, and I listen to the podcast, and I give it notes, and I tell it to ignore the Game B part of it in terms of the game. I just wanted to pay attention to the values and the reasoning and the logic behind what I'm proposing. And it doesn't do that. It's still talking about the game. So I try again. Anyway, I do it to the point that I time out of all my free account. Now I can't use my free account because I used some of it up on Klaus's trying to do that podcast that I sent to you earlier, which was well worth it. I really thought it was worth it. So I said, all right, I got to wait till tomorrow now. I can't do anything else. But what I want to say is that I went back because the next morning I woke up and I couldn't sleep. I said, let me go and see if I could do some work. And I said, maybe I'll be able to, maybe it's been replenished, but it wasn't. But reading the notes that it kept making for me was very useful. So I couldn't affect the podcast, but I was able to affect the notes. So I took the notes and I put it into a Google Doc, and then I changed a few words, edited it, and I was really thrilled with how it came out. I don't know, what you guys would think, but I was thrilled about it. So I wanted to share that with you. And so it's called SKIN, which stands for, let's see if I remember, Shared Creation Information Network, something like that. But it's basically what I had tried to describe to you like all those years ago that now intersects with game being. And the reason I'm bringing that up is the proposal, which I probably should just put in the chat. I think that's what it was. I always rush because I get nervous, but I want to, I'm going to slow down and I'm going to go on an aside while I'm looking for what I'm trying to get for you, and just say that on another call, we've been basically being off camera which I think seems to matter more to women than men. But I have felt myself to be so much more comfortable being off camera. And the way that I can, I'm not going to be able to do that. The way that my ideas flow, it's so much better when I'm not being seen. So I just want to share that to add to the male female dynamics. I don't know if other people, other women are going to necessarily feel the same just because they're women. But for me, it's very helpful to be off camera. It helps me think and be calmer. I think that's what I called it. Oh, I should put it up on here. Anyway, let me stop talking for a minute because I just said a whole bunch of stuff. But the most important thing is this idea of different stories with the same story structure, I think is really, really, really important. Like more important, like internally, I always knew it. I took it for granted. But now I see that paying attention to it could be really useful, not just going forward, but in dissecting the stories, which I'm starting to think is probably a better thing for me to do, to go back to my roots of emotions and, go towards Sharif Abdullah's work and be like the beginner's level to introduce people to his deeper level work. Over for a second. I'll let you jump in while I look for this document. Anybody?
Who's Sharif Abdullah?
Jerry? While Jerry's doing that, I have to tell you so the way the skin network would work right now, this room, there would always be a Jerry in the room. It wouldn't necessarily be Jerry. It would be somebody trained by somebody like Eric or Pete Kaminsky, and Jerry would be the liaison, but there would always be somebody like him in the room to pull up that link, to do those things. That would be very, very, how would that feel for you, Klaus? If you had a call and you had somebody sitting there who anytime, let's say you're leading a call, how would that feel just in general to have somebody doing that work for you in the background? You're muted.
Well, it depends on the type of meeting, in a free-flowing conversation, sometimes it can actually be disruptive to post, too much in detail, but I mean, it totally depends on the type of conversation.
So go ahead.
Just want to make an observation. So what I'm seeing is we're each coming in to the call, and I'm seeing a Venn diagram, like Stacey's interests, Klaus, so each of us coming in with our own framework and trying to find a common middle that we can talk about. So yeah, like you mentioned Sharif, and that's unfamiliar to Hank. So how do we bridge certain gaps and get on a level, a starting point?
So that is a really good question. And that's actually the whole point of this skin model. So I probably should take a second and do whatever I have to do to get this document, because that is the point. It is a way that the calls would be naturally organized so that people are not only showing up at their level of interest, but that there becomes a roadmap of where to go to finish that line of conversations.
Yes, like looking at the Wikipedia article, I could get a sense of Sharif's work. And yes, so it's very sketchy in my mind as well.
Okay. All right, I found it.
And it's also like which calls we've been on previously where these were discussed, and yeah.
Right. And again, I apologize because this wasn't the original intention of the call, and I don't like when that happens. But so because all these ideas were coming together, like Hank, I'm interested in words, And I've had a call where we've talked about words and a certain group of people have come, and that's been wonderful. And I could see where that's going to lead. On another call, we've been talking about where this toxic culture starts from in the very beginning. And I'm very interested in that. And moving towards the OGM space, again, at the end of the last call, I heard, I don't remember who was saying it, but this idea that we have to, become closer to nature and get back to our true nature. So all those things are threads that run through me. And I never really know which direction to go in, because there's a part of me that's a warrior and a fighter and wants to be like involved in social media and helping create narratives that can influence that, because I think there is some power or some ability to shift things using that. But then there's the other side that wants to help people lead in the inner work and the grief and all of that. Are you able to open that document?
No. Request for permission to open it was sent.
I think there's a setting you could say anybody with this link when you share it, share with anybody.
The viewer, yeah.
Yeah,
When you share a document.
I thought I had done that, but I'll do that right now. But after this, I'll probably turn that back off and just name you, but because I don't really know if we'll see what I do. Restricted people, what it says. Only people with access can open the link. So shouldn't you be able to?
Is there another option, like anybody with the link can open it?
Yes, thank you.
Try that.
Okay. So now that's done.
Yeah, that worked. Thank you.
Okay, so SKIN is called the Sharing, Creation, and Information Network. But the important part of that, which you don't have to read the document now, is that so the proposal for the pilot is what's really most important to me. I don't really care about any of these projects. It's always been just to enable doing what would mean most to me. Right now, the number one thing that means the most to me is to honor Barry Court. And he was a systems thinker. That's like the number one thing right now. But this proposal, the pilot, suggests, so I don't know if you know, Joanna Macy did pass away.
Oh.
Some of you may not have known. What this particular pilot suggests, and I won't go through the whole thing, but it has to do with preserving the work. Jerry, I put a document in there if you want to look at it, and it explains what SKIN is. And you probably know that Joanna Macy did pass away, but maybe not.
I typed in the chat that I did not know that, and I will go look at the document.
So I didn't know at the time, but so I'm just explaining that right now, what really matters to me is, when Stuart died, it was very important to me. I wanted to see his work continued. Now Barry's gone, and I want to see that. And now Joanna has died. So this proposal is, the pilot is based upon 3 separate groups. One working on curating a systems thinking set of knowledge together. And I have ideas of how to do that. And, people are going to be drawn by their passion to either that person or the topic or whatever. That's my underlying belief, which I had created a game to show whether or not my beliefs about motivation work. This isn't a game, but it's the same, the same thing. So one would be producing a systems thinking smaller library, let's say. One that would be for Barry. One would be for Stuart Levine, which is and I had discussed this with the radical people at the time. We're pretty sure there are lawyers that would want to be involved in helping do this. And that would be for his conflict resolution and conscious contract work. And the other one would be for Joanna Macy, that I would assume that Gil and Ken already have a lot of that stuff overlapping. And that would be an area that they would want to kind of guide and oversee. And so I see those three separate directions as being three lines of calls that anybody could go to, but just to start weaving the tech part to the conversational part. And so this skin proposal is a way where we would, and this is where Pete comes in, and Jerry, this is where you take it to the other side, which is that tech department that, if you remember years back, I used to try to explain how we'd be working together. It would be a reality show. I didn't have the words, but basically what we're doing now and meeting now and creating this content. And by the way, Klaus, I didn't put it in the proposal, but a fourth track could be the work that you've already done using AI, which is just another approach to the same kind of process that I put forward in this proposal. So I know that's a lot to take in. So I'm going to stop talking. I don't even care if we end the call and let you absorb it. Wherever you want to go with this, this isn't how I intended or what I intended, but it's in the moment. And I will say on the proposal, okay, now I will know, Jerry, this I think is very Jerry-ish, OGM-ish, the way I do my work, in that I have a Google document, I explain things. I think the conversation with Remzi is there. Can you see a conversation with Remzi on that one?
No, I don't see Ramsey.
Okay, I didn't leave it in. I wanted to leave
there's a drawing. Sorry, I hadn't gone down far enough. Joanna Macy, based Berry Court. I don't see
the drawing's important. The drawing makes it clear. The drawing's like when you walk into a classroom and you see words on the board and phrases, you know, it's like the drawing's an outline. So it like frames the picture, and I think makes it easier to understand.
Okay. So I don't think your Ramsey notes are in here, but everything else seems to be.
Okay.
So question for you.
Yes.
So from my perspective, I think you know that I'm busy obsessively annotating everything about everybody all the time.
Right.
The thing with Barry Stewart and Joanna is that they happen to have passed away within a certain window of time. They're otherwise sort of related, barely related, but I think you're trying to honor people and the things they did and thought about in some way. But for me, the only correlation right now between them is that they happen to pass away, you know, in the certain window of time. Am I wrong there? Because
Yes.
I'm
I think you're wrong.
curating all of them all the time anyway. I have like Stuart Levine. I've got a ton of stuff on him. Joanna Macy, I don't have enough on her. Barry, I haven't talked with in a long time. But for me, they all live very differently in my brain, but I'm always curating all of them. And I think that fits what you're doing, but I'm not sure how.
So really great question. Thank you. So the fact that they all live differently in your brain is at the heart of the problem. To my mind, those three actually are the basis. Those three, systems thinking, how we deal with each other, and how we impact and relate to the environment, are exactly the three things that we should be focused on. And there's one more, which I didn't put in the proposal, which is where we're moving to when we start talking about heart-centeredness, which I have things like directionally. The other direction is the beginning to Sharif's work, which is the real being with the environment, gets into more of the spiritual thing, totally different from everything in the like academic realm. So what you're saying is really accurate. What I'm saying is now it's time to, as Doug says, turn the telescope. And I really believe that starting at the very basics with those three, very basic systems thinking. The thing with Sharif, I'm even more basic than him. I'm starting with the word. His step, he starts with the need to tell the truth. So it's like, if you imagine me just right in the center, and then everybody else is one step up in a different direction depending on where they want to go. But at the center, we need Joanna, we need Stuart, we need Barry, and we need Sharif's basic work, is how I see it. It's almost like the four directions. It's those are the four concepts that I believe, if they were properly blended, we'd be living in a world of balance. We'd be living in what Sharif wants to create, called a world that works for everyone. Eric.
So I believe that each of these people have left enough material for anyone who's interested to follow up on their work. And Barry's death has impacted me a lot. And I've really been digging into Donella Meadows' book about systems thinking. And there are real insights in there once you can see the whole systems, and you can take pieces of her theories and understand the reinforcement loops that are keeping us stuck in whatever we're in, or the different patterns. So I can do that. I mean, that's because it's interesting to me. And related to that is Daniel Pink's book called Drive, about motivation, because a lot of theories historically about what motivates people are wrong. And I'm learning that as I go. And I feel like I've reached out to some of the people that knew Barry that may not have known about his passing, like his online Facebook group of the students who grew up taking his classes online in the mud.
Right.
So I feel, yeah, that was important to me. And when Stuart passed, I bought his books. I haven't really gotten into them yet, but they're available if I want to really learn about his coming to agreement. And I could see the perspectives. So all these people have touched each of us in different ways. And it just becomes part of us as we go forward. So as long as we bring our full selves into these conversations, we are honoring what they've taught us. So
Right.
now I think what you need to do is take a relaxed approach to this and detach from any expectations. Just like, what is on your mind today? And yeah.
So here's the thing, and I've heard this expression, we're drowning in data and starving for information. The idea is there's too much out there.
Mhm.
I want to be able to start fresh with different circles, meaning that, let's say, the Barry conversation, it starts fresh with people coming to hear about systems thinking. That's where you would show up there because, like you said, you want to mention what you've been reading about Donella Meadows.
Right.
That's the opportunity for her name to be put in that clean, fresh space with
Yeah.
those people that are coming there for an interest. And whatever comes out of that call will grow organically, but it won't be a whole bunch of people that came to the call not knowing what this week's topic was. Similarly, for the other people, they're coming because they have at least some interest. Doesn't have to be 100%, I want to do only this, but enough to make them a little interested. Because what this will also do, it will provide a natural blender for people. So it will be like in OGM, when people come, they all have their own different interests, but they come and it's an opportunity for them to learn a little bit more about each other. And sometimes they go off and do other things, or they learn about things they wouldn't normally have learned about. This is just breaking off OGM into smaller bites. Think of it that way. And then you can travel from bite to bite. You don't have to stay in any one place. You come and go as you want, but it provides, to my mind, it will provide an opportunity to see connections that you wouldn't normally have seen.
What that reminds me of is, like, I've been to these events where there are different instructors in different rooms, and you get a schedule and you could go around and pick who you want to hear, spend an hour here, spend a half hour there, and you make your own path through it. And one of them that I recently went to, there was a guy who was just totally technical. I didn't understand a thing he was talking about with the electronics, but I could tell that's what he grew up with, and he was really detail oriented. And that made an impression on me. And I stayed because I could follow the logical reasoning, even though I didn't understand the particulars. So it's showing a certain respect to that person. And that's really what I'm looking for, just to make more human connections here and there, and just navigate my way forward. Now, like with the stuff I've been learning, that could be if Sam wants to do that on a Sunday call to have me show some pages from that book. Some of the diagrams are useful for discussion. That may be a way of doing that.
Now you're making a good point that helps me out. So I mentioned to Sam the idea that OGM would take the lead on doing the systems thinking part to try to create that course. I wouldn't be a part of that, but you guys would be doing that because that's like a level up. Or if
do you mean GCC or
GCC.
OGM? Okay,
I meant
thanks.
GCC. Sorry,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, just.
Klaus.
Yeah, I think we're a little loose on systems thinking definition. You know, what exactly do we mean by that? And I'm trying really hard to get out of the theoretical space, right? Because we have all the theories and all the authors and so much of it, but the translation into practical examples that help people see relationships and connect the dots, it has to be done in a story format as simple as can be, right? So I'm focusing my newsletters, for example, on connecting the dots, making a system transparent. So in my last newsletter, I'm pointing out that the US has a massive trade surplus in commodities, corn, soy, and wheat, and has a massive trade deficit in fruits and vegetables. Right? I mean, we're importing 70% of our fruits and 50% of our vegetables. So, but the corn doesn't have a market because the Chinese just stopped buying, and so now they're turning it into biofuel, which is massively negative from a carbon standpoint. So I'm just connecting these pieces, and that's why, and that really resonates, and that in turn spins other folks, to embed these insights into their conversations and into their presentations. So to me, systems thinking is a living thing, right? It's looking for examples in a practical sense, and so and that's particularly important when the majority of people that can't really think in systems. And it's not something that you can necessarily skill on. It's a talent, and so I mean, you can learn how to sing, but you got to have a voice. It's that kind of thing. And some people just naturally see a system and connections, and for others they need a story behind it. And once you create that story, then it pops. So if you think of yourself as a storyteller, not as a systems thinker necessarily, but as a storyteller who helps to explain relationships. I mean, Yuval Harari is the master of storytelling. I mean, the way he brings stuff to life in ways that is just like, wow, it's so simple, and uncomplicated to understand. I think that's sort of the skill that I'm striving for, that I would like to, that I have been expanding. And so to me, AI is just a tool, right? Because I can I can lay into AI my understanding of these connections and the system, and it fleshes it out, but it doesn't think of it on its own. Does that make sense? I mean, I have to come to the AI with, you know, you have to see this and this and this, and this is connected. And then it gets there instantly better than I could, you know, express it. But it doesn't get there on its own.
Yeah, no, thank you. And part of the idea underneath this proposal is that I believe it's going to create an opportunity for people that do have that skill set that you're thinking about, but have been pursuing their own interests to blend together. So when it comes to like Joanna Macy's work, and people are going to recognize, oh, you're doing this over there. Oh, do you know so-and-so? We're working on this project. And it then goes into real world things. So that was what was part of the Game B plan. This is just the top surface level where I'm just, you know, where I'm trying to introduce something. But I hear your concerns, and I really want to help move people into the action part. That is the goal. But I think there still needs to be some people blending, because there is still some siloing, not just in interests, but in mindsets and ways of thinking. And I think that this could help mix generations a little bit more, because I mean, the flavors of conversations that I'm in, as far as people that are more active and less active, there's definitely a generational gap. So this would be like sort of like that middle ground where, you know, you could just dip a toe in. And when I say, getting back to the OGM piece and the people stewarding those spaces, they're more like curators. There's tons of stuff out there, but they're going to be curating like the beginner's path. So if you think of like a Disney Hall of Fame, where you go down, like you go down, I don't know, the learning chamber that's dedicated to a particular person. You can go down their chamber, but you visited the other, you're able to see the connections in a systems way, if that makes sense. But I just want to repeat the part where Eric was saying that him and Sam could be doing. I just want to make it very clear. Somebody like me would not be in those spaces. That's a more highly evolved place. And people, so this is almost like developing a new educational system where people can work their way up to get to the next level of knowledge and deeper thought. But there's still an accessible starting place where people can also engage socially. And hopefully it will lead to real world problems, local and cross-regionally.
I mean, I think like a great way of learning is to listen to a talented comedian. You know, John Oliver, Jon Stewart. I mean, these guys are making fun of stuff that's really serious, you know, and the way they explain it, you laugh about it, but at the same time, you don't, right? Because you go, wow, I didn't think of that. And so by highlighting these connections, almost like a game, they're really bringing insights to people who wouldn't see that on their own, you know. And so that's really helpful. And then and humor is the best way to convey knowing, right? I mean, that's it just becomes sort of a acceptable thing. You don't get excited about it. You don't get angry or anything. It's just, yeah, that's really silly, funny kind of thing. But it's also amazingly stupid. Why are we doing this? You know, these kinds of thoughts go through your mind.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the fourth chamber that I didn't write about. That fourth chamber is a place where people could come on a call like this, but we have a tech person. So let's say, Klaus, you come and you bring John Oliver's video and you say, yeah, I was looking at this. I think this is really great. Which pieces should we take out? And we kind of work together. It's like a working group, but it's fun. And we decide together, let's pull this line out. Let's pull that line out. And we create content based on other people's content, but we do it together. So we're building in that social piece for us. Together, we're watching the comedy. Together, we're creating a new package for it. That all of that is part of how do we create systems and processes that honor who we are as people and help us to connect and build relationships and become dependent and interdependent upon us. I mean, think about it. When somebody retires and now they feel like they've lost their purpose, wouldn't it be nice? Oh, there's a call. There's a call. They're breaking down John Oliver's video today. Let me join that. I want to be part in that conversation. It's just another way to utilize conversations at the same time, work and fun at the same time.
There's an art to doing that. Like certain people have that comic talent where they're able to, yeah.
Well, they've written it already. It's out there already. We can take what's already been there and just,
yeah, that's one thing. Yep. What I've learned from Barry is the Socratic method, that you teach by not really explaining, and you want to draw out the student with questions and see where they are, and then help them get another step in, and then help them through the emotions that they're feeling as they're learning.
well, somebody would
so,
be
yeah.
able to watch our calls. That's the whole thing. They'd be able to watch the six of us speaking. That might generate their own thoughts. Then they would know who they could reach out to or where they might want to show up. It might spark their ideas, but there would be people on hand that would be there to greet them. And just, you know, I mean, because I think, again, I'm trying to draw on my experiences of where my difficulties were, even in getting my ideas from where they started however many years ago to now, and how I was finally able to get here. And I'm trying to make it easier for those that come after me from this different world of like non-tech or non-media, or I don't have a family that had a professional background or took me to Jerry's conferences. You know, all those people, I want to create a pathway for them. And again, a mixing ground for everybody. But I think especially now that we're not going to have a Department of Education, I think that we have so much knowledge in this group, like so much, the information, I'm talking about all of your connections and, you know, everything, that we could really do something, we could create something great doing what you guys are already doing anyway.
So I see it as different interest groups, like, but people, you also don't want to give people homework, like watch this hour video. No, you want them to come as themselves, and knowing there's a topic they may be interested in, and maybe just somebody gives a short intro and lets the discussion run from there, and wherever it goes.
This is meant
there's also a skill set in setting up your storyline. I mean, I used to highlight systems issues, you know, conflicts and irrational kind of connections in a way that's almost angry, right? I mean, how can you be so dumb to do this and so on? And that doesn't really go very far. I mean, it really, you know, doesn't resonate. So I mean, and I spent several years taking courses across a range of universities in the US, and I mean online courses and stuff to, you know, figure out systems and systems thinking and get into all this. But for the last year or couple of years, the challenge really is not that you understand systems, you get systems, right? I mean, it's not, I mean, systems are relationships and connections, and but how to tell the story, you know, the art of storytelling is really far more important to embrace. So for example, there is one guy, Corbin Trent, he's on Substack, and it is Trent, Corbin. and he writes in a wonderful style. I mean, it's sort of humor, there's some sarcasm, and so on. It really comes across well. So I started imitating his style, his writing style. And you can actually do this by feeding his code, the article you like best, to the AI, and then say, copy this conversation style, you know, and then you have to model it so it doesn't, you know, so it stays more like you, not, you know, something that you wouldn't write. But that's kind of a different way of thinking, right? It's not focusing on Donella Meadows and all. No, it's focusing on how would you convey your story or the story that you just patched together in the most effective way to your target group audience, right? And your target group audience may be something different on Facebook than it would be on LinkedIn or within different types of conversations. So I think it's this how to. I think we have sort of matured beyond systems thinking, you know, where everybody basically gets what it is and has read, you know, the major literature on it. So the question now is, how do you put this in practice for yourself? And as a group, you know, and how can you exchange thoughts along that topic?
Yeah, I like the way you put that, Klaus, because I came to this call thinking that we were talking about how to understand and use narrative structures in effective ways, and you've translated that into not only narrative structures, but stories in which you have a message embedded which you want to get across. So I think it's worthwhile talking and thinking more about things like that.
So one of the other things, and that's where I'm going to go now that I've presented this idea and I've gotten it out, is that I've recognized that so many people are trying to tell other people's stories, and that I'd like to see that shift to empowering people to tell their own stories. So, like, I was just turned on to a podcast called The Moth. And funny enough, the next day, well, actually, the next day somebody sent me, and it's this story of empowerment by this young Hispanic woman. And she's talking about this. I won't go into the story, but I was like, wow. And I was like, that's what we have to do. We have to, what I would like to be in a place. So when I say this is for us, this is our play space, you know, I would like to be in a room where I say, when was the first time, I don't know, it could be when was the first time that you were bullied, or when was the first time that you felt empowered, where you realized I could do this. And it's, I think of it like, instead of glass beads, I go from beads to pearls, because pearls are made by nature, even though they're irritating, but glass needs that pressure, you know, and that's the old paradigm, that you got to cause all this pressure to get something to like break so you could, you know, remake it. But I would like to hear our stories first for us. And I don't think that's, I mean, we do that a little bit. I mean, I think part of why the flavor of OGM calls have changed so much, I think has to do with the fact that more of us are revealing more about ourselves. I think that's a really positive thing. I would like to do more of that, but in a space where people know that's what they're getting into. You know, not everybody wants to be vulnerable or honest, and I respect that. Again, that understanding is in anything or everything I do. But I think that it's important to not so much tell other people's stories, but to bring the microphone to them and to hear it. Jerry?
Given what you just said, Stacey, it would be interesting for you or anybody to sponsor or start or hold a space online like the one we're in right now, where the ground rules are, hey, no intellectualizing, only personal observations, personal stories here. And it's a safe space. We won't record the calls, whatever the rules might be. But to basically exclude, I think that, you know, capitalism is terrible or whatever. Like none of that. That's the theory free zone or something like that, which would be interesting. And I don't know if that's what you're looking for.
I would love to do that, yeah.
Yeah, but that's not what I'm hearing you say this is yet.
Because what this is that thing that I wish existed when I came onto the scene. So this whole thing about skin, gee, if skin had been there, I could have jumped in and I could have said, oh, can I get somebody to help me at 1 o'clock? Because I'm going to be meeting here. And I would know that I'd have that kind of support, whether it be emotional support or technical support or the support or the space, because I don't actually even have a room at this point. So I could do 40 minutes at a time. And my whole shtick is that it has to be for free. Like I cannot, I won't pay for anything. That's part of the experiment, that I'm living. So yeah, skin is something that I wish existed. And what happens is if you have money, you don't need skin. If you have money, you just pay a team to come in and do whatever you tell them to do. Donald Trump could do whatever he want early on because he was just paying everybody to do it. So he could tell this one, you do this, you do this, you do this. When I've been yeah, I'm not going to say it. Never mind. But yes, skin is what I wish I had. So to me, that would be something empowering. Yesterday, Sam said to me, well, you could do, I was talking about something. I said, I wish there was a place that we could put these links. And he said, well, you could do that on YouTube. And I was like, I know, but that's not good enough for people like me. I've had to use Facebook Messenger as my file cabinet. That's where yes, I've been doing that for 8 years. So then I got to go back and figure, well, who would I have said that to? And it's just hard. It shouldn't be that hard. But people that are building the tech are building for their needs. They're not really going out and saying, well, what do you need that will empower you? And the sense that I'm getting is we want to empower the seedlings. I want to help empower the seedlings and help them grow. And then I all want us to meet like in the garden and plan our meet, whatever. But again, it's, what could I say? But yes, I would prefer, rather than doing these kind of calls or rather than creating those documents, I would prefer being in my little space, talking to people about grief or being on a heartfelt, whatever it is. That's what I love to do. That's what I do for free in my life. That's why people come up to me and tell me stories, even though I only knew them for a half an hour.
I think we each have those networks in our lives in different situations with different people we trust.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard for people who are remote to first establish some trust and then to collaborate and help, that we could empathize, but still, yeah, there are limits to even self-disclosure. I mean, some self-disclosure helps build trust, but then there are boundaries. So yeah, there's a lot of respect. And I know Jerry studied a lot about trust. He's very optimistic about it. Yeah, what I see in the world is lack of trust. And I don't know how to get around that sometimes. And I've been burned in the past by trusting too much, and that's just another aspect of my personality. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing, because in the chat, Hank and Jerry are playing with skinheads and skin in
Yeah.
the game. And that's part of this too, because that ties back
Yeah.
to the word calls. So I could have a whole session just on skinheads, skin in the game. Like when I talk to Doug, I sometimes think about this. Actually, this came to me the other day. What do you think of this idea? So you know how glass beads work? The game of glass beads. I think it's like you can, well, I'm not sure, but I think it is. But so forget about that. But the idea was that there would be a sentence or a word, and that we go around each person, you can just tell like 3 or 4 sentences about yourself. And then the next person can pick off of any one of those things and tell 3 or 4 sentences about themselves. But you got to connect one of the words. So in a way, it would be a game where people get to tell a little bit about themselves, but the fun part of it, or the punny part of it, is like connecting to the word. So somebody might use the word pearl, and somebody might it might connect to a song title or something that gives them the opportunity to share what it is they want to share, but they have to be able to find that connection in order to share that story. So it's almost like Scrabble, where you have to like first find the connection, but then you get to take it in your direction. And I thought that might be a fun way to learn about each other, like, because it's a game, because if you can't think of anything, then you laugh about it. But that's a whole separate call on fun and games for shits and giggles. That's different flavors of calls, playing with words.
First of all, has everybody seen Pitch Perfect, the original movie, the first one?
No.
It's all about a cappella singers with Anna. It made Anna Kendrick famous. Pitch Perfect 2 and 3 are miserable movies. They did a terrible job trying to recreate the magic of the first one. I watched the first one with my nieces back way when. Oh my God, I love that movie. I just watched it recently again. It's just phenomenal. And there's a thing called a riff off, which they do in an empty pool. And they go around and you have to interrupt the person singing a song with the word they're going to hit, and then you pick up that word and start a new song that has that word in it. And they bounce off each other in the pool in a way, Stacey, that you would adore. And I think in a way that you kind of intend for the thing you just described. Now,
yes.
You've just described 2 things that got me really excited, that I'm really interested in. Neither one of which are my perception of skin. The skin for me was about 4 humans and information about the 4 humans. That's what I heard when I read your proposal and I was listening to you. I was like, I'm not sure what Joanna Macy has to do with Stewart has to do. Like, I get that they've passed away. I get that they each did important work. I was kind of lost in that space.
Got it.
As you talk about, hey, how do we riff off each other and tell personal stories? I'm into that, and I would also say, years ago, I think Charles Blass recommended it, and I went out and I bought OpenGlobalHeart.com, and I think I still own it. So it would be very interesting to have a separate series of Open Global Heart calls where it's safe space, not recorded, only about getting to know each other. And by the way, if you're not recording, you can use Google Meet for an hour or more. Google Meet doesn't have the 45-minute limit that that Zoom has, and Google Meet has higher quality video and a bunch of cool things as well. It's pretty cool.
Good, thank you.
So you might want to just try Google Meet, because
I'll do that.
If I weren't so far down the Zoom rabbit hole, I would probably be doing Google Meet and Google Desktop or Workspace, which then lets you record Google Meet calls, et cetera. But I don't want to switch. Anyway, what I'm saying is like there's a piece of what you're describing, Stacey, that I think I also would love to see happen.
So, well, 2 things. I just realized the reason I can't use Google Meet is because there might be little nuggets that each participant might want to take and use for their own thing. So that's part of so the part you heard about the 3 people, that's the part that speaks to one sector of people. The skin is really for the people that aren't in this room, all the techie people that are more focused on work, and that has more to do with organizations and stuff that I'm not really interested, but I need them, and I need to give them insight into what we need. And I also want to create bye-bye, Klaus, thank you. I also want to create an opportunity for those people to interact with us. So for example, they might want to do the fun part that you just talked about, but even if they didn't, if they were serving by hosting one of our calls, they're automatically blending with those people. Even though they're there just doing a job, they're still drinking in what it is that we're talking about. So this underneath is a much more ambitious plan that affects the economy and all these other things. I haven't included that in skin. Skin is just one layer of something, but I thought calling it skin is perfect because skin is your largest organ. And so the idea is you create the skin and then we fill in the body inside. And that includes the mind and the heart and all of that. So again, there's a word play there as well. And, again, there are other topics that need to happen, like in the health field and all those other things. So you're right, these are just 3 people. But I think that these 3 people could be the 3 legs to the stool. And I believe it's the right place to start at the very basic level. And like I said, I'm also interested in producing educational material. So maybe there'll just be 1 2-minute clip out of an entire call. But that clip may be like, oh, let's send this over to so-and-so because they can use it in that particular library. Like I have a whole nother thing of a library. One day I'll take you on a tour. My mind is not like your brain, Jerry. My mind is a bunch of Google Docs, which is awful to have to deal with. But my pictures,
you have my sympathy.
I'll have to show you on like a screen share, and we could just travel through my Google Docs of pictures and links and all those things that I go to. I'd rather have a better library.
I have, like Klaus, I have to bounce to a different call at this point. I apologize. I can leave this room going and you guys can keep talking until you want to close it down. So I can pass the
5
con.
more minutes to give a chance for people to
Sure,
finish.
sure. Shall I pass it to
Thank
you
you.
or shall I
Yeah,
pass it to you or to Eric?
Pass it to me.
Okay, good. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you, Jerry.
much. Thank you. And I won't keep you guys long because I know it wasn't the aim. It wasn't the original reason I called you here, but I appreciate the support because this really helps me to get this out. Now I can just move on to the next thing I want to do.
Let me just make a comment, since you said now for the 2nd or 3rd time about producing educational materials.
Yes.
I would challenge your statement about 15, 20 minutes ago about no homework. I think some sort of homework in regards to questions you might think about is always useful in every learning process, even if the questions remain unanswered during the call. The work that you've done to find out who is Corbin Trent, or who is Sharif Abdullah, or what was the skin proposal of 3 weeks ago, will sharpen your own thinking and make you more interested in listening to what people have to say.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Can I just
I'm the one
address
who
that
said
point first? Can I just, before you go to the second point? Can I
was it
address?
your point, Eric? Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll explain, but go ahead, Stacey. You go
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, I just want to jump in real quick and just remind, this is meant for us. So any homework, you would choose what your homework was. So if you decided you wanted to know who he was, you're a big boy. That's up for you. So this isn't for children. This is for us, and it's self-motivated. So all it's doing is making visible what's out there for you to learn about, should you want to. So that's the first point, and I'll let you decide between the two of you who goes next.
No, Eric.
Okay,
goes
let me
next.
explain.
Yeah.
So the idea of giving people homework was like preparing a video and expecting people to watch it.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. No.
Right. So that's where I've gotten into trouble in the past. Like, okay. So it's more like you could have suggestions of more resources, but it's always optional, and each person has to decide for themselves how they're preparing or coming into the call. Now, I just want to observe, we haven't heard from Alistair. Do you want to check in a little bit?
I don't have much to contribute. Yeah, that's fine. I'm just listening in. I'm happy to
Okay.
listen.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to make sure you're included.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thanks, Harry.
Yeah.
And Eric,
Yeah.
to answer your question, what I would like is that all of the links that were brought up in a call would be in a place
Yep.
that anybody after the call could know where to go to.
Yeah.
That's the point of Skin, to be able to have that library or that repository or whatever you want to call it, so that you can go back and say, you know what? They were talking about something. This is interesting. Let me go to the library and find it.
Now, I'll mention Pete is good at that kind of stuff, and
Excellent.
he's excellent. What I saw him do years ago was use Obsidian to document all the artifacts of a call and link them together. And I've been learning Obsidian as I'm helping Klaus. So yeah, I see that's a value. It's a question of making it easy for people to use, and
Right, because people like me are not going to go and learn Obsidian. I'm not doing it.
Right, it has to be published on in a space where people can find it and be able to comment and continue the discussions. So just as an example, this past weekend, I was in an event which was all online for 2 days, and maybe 20 different people talking about topics that interest them, all related to Apple computers. So they have a whole video library now, which they'll break up into sessions so people could watch them later.
Nice.
But yeah, and then there was a Discord chat. As people were watching together, we were sharing comments with each other about each other's presentations, and I participated, and I learned a lot about myself when I do this. Like,
yeah, well, that's the process.
And I'm I'm realizing that I may be at a higher level than most others, and they may not really be able to comprehend the level that I'm talking about. So maybe for this audience, I could have dumbed it down a little. I don't like that word, but maybe just simplified the flow, which is fine. I mean, there are people who do get it, and they're interested, and I may make some connections from this going forward. But it's just an example.
I know that Hank had one other thing to say. I don't know, one other thing, something else to say.
Before I say the other thing, I'll get back to Eric. I agree with your explanation of why you said no homework. The only thing I would add to that is that some people need to prepare the ground before they plant the seed.
Yeah.
And for those people, even if it is a link, if it is a list of links from the past conversations in which they could do some sampling, it would help some people in preparing the ground.
Yeah.
The other thing sorry, yeah.
I just wanted to touch base. So what I'm proposing, they would need the starting point of what I'm talking about. You don't need anything other than to know your name. Like, that's the point. Like, I'm really talking about coming in ground zero. Who are you? You're HANK. We'll start there. STACEY. We'll start there. So I just want to say that. Go ahead.
Sounds a bit like Digital Alcoholics Anonymous.
I wouldn't know, luckily.
No, I've only seen it portrayed in dramas. But the other thing I wanted to say was relative to one of the very first things you talked about when you mentioned Skin, and hadn't yet even found the proposal, and that was about having a Jerry-like entity in a call that would automatically recognize a person's name or reference to a book or a film and automatically put a link to that in the chat. I thought that was a terrific idea.
Well, actually, I didn't really. So let me just clarify. What that would entail is whoever that person was would meet with the other like they would get together before. It wouldn't be like off the cuff. I mean, it could be if the person, like somebody like Jerry's capable, but it wouldn't be Jerry doing it. These would be young people that, you know, are learning or working in the tech center. Like this is like an internship for them. This is the piece of, you know, that I haven't talked about because it doesn't pertain to the conversational spaces. This is a conversation for how would we work the manning of these spaces. But again, a lot of what's built into this are ways to make sure that the different generations and the different cultures, not just geographical, but cultures, hip hop culture, you know, music culture, you know, the way the different cultures would get mixed together. And to Eric's point about the higher level or the lower level, this is also another way to come in at the right layer of the onion. So it's like the same topic, but you're at a different layer of the onion. And how deep you go is up to you.
Well, thanks for all inspiring ideas. I've got to run as well.
Thank you so much for listening to me. I seriously, and I just want to say, there's a lot of people that need to be listened to. And if we could figure out a way to do it in a way that's productive, and that's what I'm trying to work towards. So thank you so much, really.
And see you,
Thank you.
next Monday, I think.
Are
Bye-bye.
you going to do this every Monday or?
Oh,
There
I
are
am
4
going
Mondays,
to, I'm going to
yeah.
put it this way. I'm going to be here Monday. What's going to come out of my mouth might be different. I'm going to wait and hear the feedback I get and ask you what, if you're going to be here on Monday. I'm going to see who's going to be here because like Hank, if you're here, but other people aren't, then I definitely know the direction I'm going in, but it depends who comes because it's a blending. So I appreciate all of you. So thank you. And Alice,
Okay.
I'm sorry. I didn't call on you because I thought you were just here to listen. But if you want to say anything in terms of if there's anything you're interested in, I would love to hear that. And Hank, I won't keep you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
No interest. Okay. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have
Bye-bye.
a good day.